All right, we're live. Um, okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about frequency function today, and this is a topic that gets really, really out there really, really quickly, and is very difficult for people to understand. But this is a big part of what we do, so I wanted to kind of touch on it. So, from a frequency function, your body does not actually communicate with with electricity. So the idea that nerves carry electricity, and the electricity tells our body what to do isn't actually 100% what's going on. Your body communicates with electromagnetic frequencies, much like your credit card carries that stripe on your credit card before we went to chips and touch stuff. That stripe carried tons of electromagnetic information. Um, your security key card does the same thing. So that type of information, that electromagnetic frequencies, that's how your body actually communicates. Because when we look at actually electromagnetic physics, it's pretty simple. Uh, Electricity travels in a wave from point A to point B. Coupled to that wave in a perpendicular fashion is an electromagnetic frequency. Uh, so that's basically how all that stuff works. VHS tapes, I'm going way back in the day. VHS tapes work on electromagnetic frequencies as well. It's a magnetic strip tape that you're using. So the concept is not new. We've known it forever. What happens though is that those electromagnetic frequencies, uh, they can be tweaked and altered. Your body can start recognizing them a little bit differently. They can be damaged from a variety of different things: piercings, punctures, blunt force trauma, burns, and of course, psychological damage. Very often, we will see people who've had, you know, stress, or they went through something they perceived as highly stressful, or it really was highly stressful. And again, perception is more reality. So, if two people go through the same event and one of their bodies perceives it as much more personally stressful than the other person does, person A will have a lot more psychological issues than person B will. The variation in this is astounding, and I think when we do more research into why certain people take uh, different impacts from different psychological things, I think we're going to learn a lot more about how to treat people. But this is, again, outside of chemicals, so this is not a pharmacological thing. So all of Western medicine, who is based on sell drugs, is going to tell you that frequency work and stuff like that is all trash, and it's wrong, and just buy my drugs, and that type of thing. So this is kind of, what party are you in? Are you in the maintenance management of disease thing, or are you in actually fix the problem type of thing? This brings up all the grounding stuff that people go into. Your body resonates at a very specific frequency because your body is 100% natural. And so it resonates at a very specific frequency. The earth resonates at the exact same frequency. So the old biblical thing that we were made, from the clay of the earth, has, from a frequency standpoint, a lot of evidence there. Which is why it's funny, because if you muscle test somebody inside my building, and we've accounted for a lot of energy variances in the building. We've reset the energy function so we're where it needs to be, so we can test real well here. You take that same person, you take them outside, take their shoes off, put them on the actual ground, on the earth and the grass, test them again, radically different tests. So without getting too far into the physics, because I've only got a couple minutes, if you guys have grounding sheets, if you guys have grounding mats, like, I highly recommend that you get a grounding mat. There's a bunch of them on Amazon. People are like, well, what are the good ones? Man, this is really simple stuff. It doesn't really matter. As long as it plugs into the ground, like you're of the outlet, like when you stick stuff in the electrical outlet, as long as you plug it into the ground and it has the basic, function, you're going to be fine. There are going to be some that are more comfortable, more durable, things like that. But go to Amazon, grab a grounding mat. And so, like, I have one that sits in my chair whenever I at office just working. So those are fantastic. Grounding sheets work great, but that's the thing. So when I talk about eliminating allergies, when I talk about, eat a peanut and die, and we can fix that in 20 minutes, that's what I'm talking about. We can actually change we can convince the body that the frequency of that peanut is okay, and you're good. Now, the problem we run into with allergies is that you can be okay to food A, you can be okay to food B, but when you eat them together, that creates a problem. So there is still some art and nuance to it, but the frequency function of what's going on is highly important. So when we do muscle testing, when you do any of the energy reset, the stuff, the reset, the quantum state that we do here for allergies and things like that. That's what I'm talking about. So I've had people ask me all the time, hey, is this grounding thing real? Is this frequency stuff real? It is, but again, and this is the thing with muscle testing, right? Like muscle testing is one of the primary ways I test everything. It's where I test my family. It's where I test everybody else. It's how I figured out how to fix COVID. Like it is by far the very best way to diagnose, figure out exactly what's wrong with somebody. I'll pull a bunch of blood and, like I'll do a blood test that I have no pricing influence on, like Genova's test, which is like $1,200 for food sensitivities, and they'll come back and they'll be roughly okay. It'll take like 2 weeks to get back and cost $1,200. I can do the exact same thing with the food you're worried about for, $100 in 5 minutes. So it's a lot easier with muscle testing, and it's a lot more specific. Because people go, oh, I didn't know I had that issue. Yeah, okay. But not only can we identify it, we can then usually fix it in the next 20 minutes too. So 30-minute, appointment, you figure out, oh, I was sensitive to these foods, and now I'm not. Just because you can reset them with frequency sets. But that's a big piece. So when people say like, what's this QRA? That's the muscle testing, and that's the where we we figure out you're sensitive to foods or supplements or whatever, and we eliminate those sensitivities. That's part of the executive physical. The muscle testing, and this is an art form as much as a science. There's people who can do a great job with muscle testing, figure out you need all these things, and then they're like, oh, you tested for 40 things, take all 40 things, which is a problem because they don't understand how the body actually works. And because most of the time when you test somebody, you figure out where they are today. That's all you get. You don't get a treatment plan. This is exactly what's going on with the body today. Then the practitioner has to look at that and go, oh, I'm going to now design out how we're going to put all this stuff together. But if you really want to get a great handle on what's going on, you're going to have to find somebody who does muscle testing and does a really good job of it. There's a lot of guys out there who do muscle testing and they're bad at it. Just like there's a whole lot of guys who write scripts for medications and they're terrible at it, especially in the hormone department. So I know there's some, Larry Carden's pretty good. Johanna was good. Like I've met a bunch of people who are good at it. There's a lot of chiros who are great at it. The products they use are not fantastic. A lot of guys are still using standard process. And standard process was the best 15, 20 years ago. Then the guy who started it died and the accountants took over and now it's not very good. Same thing happened with one of the companies I used to really love, which was PRL. Dr. Marshall died and some of their stuff has started to lose some of the quality. But as far as, because I'm getting questions about grounding and, earthing and things like that. Yeah, that stuff's real and it's highly beneficial. Like one of the things I like to do when it's not rain, which I'm in Texas, so like we have like 3 weeks where it's raining and we all complain about it. And then for the rest of the year, we're like, we should get some rain. But what we'll do is we'll go out, take our shoes off, the socks off, and my kids now throw the football around. One, because I want to throw the football with my kids, but two, because when your socks and shoes are off and you're on the actual dirt, you're actually on the ground, it helps reset all those frequencies. So grounding's a real thing, earthing's a real thing. You guys can, like I said, you can get those mats from Amazon for like $20, $30. Toss them in your chair. Like while you're doing your work, all you gotta do is just sit on them. It's not that big of a deal. Make sure you plug them in. But it's not that big of a deal. So if you're looking for that next little like $20, $30 hack to really kind of improve your health, and you've been reading about grounding and earthing and stuff like that, it's hard to describe in 10 minutes because a lot of people don't have the basic physics to kind of understanding to explain it. And the other problem is that we don't 100% understand exactly how it all works, but it does, and it's really beneficial because our bodies are basically liquid crystal, if you will, structures. I'm trying to break this all down in my head so it's easier to understand. And we all resonate at a very specific frequency. And the frequency of the nutrition we bring in also matters, which is why I'm so picky with my supplementation, because it has to both be chemically and energetically where it needs to be, which is why, again, half of our supplements come from one group and then half of them come from another group and some of them come from over here. So they all get shipped from different places because I'll work with a company and I'll be like, your CoQ10 is amazing. Your B vitamins are amazing. Your NAC is meh because of how they make it or where they get it. And so I have to find somebody else. And that's why when you order things from the store, from the Seawell store or the Pillars Wellness, sometimes they come from different places because I got to take this stuff too. I'm giving this stuff to my kids. My name's not going on anything that I don't think is as top notch as possible. And so I find the best both chemically and energetically, and that's how we get it out. So, if you guys are wondering about that, don't spend a lot of time, energy, or money on it. Go outside, take your shoes and socks off and walk around on the ground. If you don't have time for that, to do that a little bit every day, grab a $20 or $30 grounding mat and sit on it while you're working on your computer. So like my wife has one that she puts her bare feet on when she works on her computer. So at the house. So those things are great. When we start talking about muscle testing, we start talking about QRA, when we start talking about thera work, when we start talking about the other energetic functions that we do, that's what we're talking about. It's a quantum function. So and it's always funny because like I'll bring people in and people are like, what's going on? I'm like, this test is for me. And I'll test them all up and they'll have all these vials on them. They'll have all these different pills and different stuff. And they're like, am I taking all this? I'm like, no, don't worry about it. And I'll get all the way done. And it's always funny because what I used to do was my dad, who works with me, would do an intake and kind of get everything down so we don't miss anything. And then I would come in and say, hi, I'm Dr. Chalmers. And I would immediately test them without talking to them. And then I go, here's what's going on. I would walk them through like all the symptoms that they're having. And they'd all just be like, oh my gosh, how'd you know? And I'm like, because your body told me what was going on. Like I know when you have weak adrenals, I know that you're going to have, depending on how weak they are, if you stand up, you're going to get dizzy. You're going to have ADD, ADHD issues with weak adrenals. When you have really tore up guts, you're going to have more, gas and bloating. You're going to have more, anxiety and depression stuff when you have weak kidneys paired with a weak gut because your serotonin function's low. So, it's pretty one of those, when you test the whole body, I know exactly what's going on and I know exactly how to fix it. So muscle testing is a really, really big thing. If I had to give up either blood testing over muscle testing, I give up blood testing in a heartbeat. The only thing I really love blood testing for is hormone function. Everything else is kind of iffy. Like I can test everything else in a much easier fashion, much more reliably with muscle testing. But so as far as some of the weird stuff that people are talking about now, this grounding, the frequencies, I think you're going to start hearing more and more about muscle testing and stuff like that. That's real stuff. It's really, really good. The problem is that you can't use it to diagnose and to treat with drugs. And that's one of the reasons that most people are not talking about it or using it because one, it's weird. It's in the real base of this is quantum physics. And as a society, we don't have a firm grasp on quantum physics yet either. So it's very, very difficult to explain from a science standpoint exactly how it works, but that's what's going on. So as far as the biohacking stuff and all the frequency stuff that we talk about and all the muscle testing, this has been, I think, not a very good explanation, but that's where a lot of that lives. So like I said, your body resonates at a very specific frequency. You can bring items into that field, into your what's called a toroid field. You guys can look it up. It looks like a donut. It's like a magnetic field that comes around the body, shaped kind of like that. When you bring the electromagnetic frequency from a food or a product or a supplement into your field, it affects your field in either a positive or negative manner. And so if it makes it positive, you go strong. It's your body that helps, add to the frequency of your body and bring it back up to where it resonates at a higher frequency. Then we go, yes, this is something you need. Or we find something that's destabilizing to the field, like a parasitic infection, a bacterial infection, a viral infection, and then we bring something into the field to neutralize that frequency. And then that's how we can tell if that's what we need for, antibiotic function, or antibacterial function, antiviral function, that sort of thing, to figure out which herb is the very best for your body. And that's worked every time. Like I said, that's how I figured out how to fix COVID. People are like, how did you know to use quinine? Well, I knew what quinine was used for was for vasodilation. I knew that we had a vasoconstriction issue. And so I grabbed some quinine and we tested against people with COVID and it worked. And so that's what we started using. And then, like literally that day, we started recognizing that it worked because we would give it to people, put them in the chamber, and boom, they were better. So that one helped out. But that's kind of how a lot of this stuff works. So it's like sine cosine. So if you guys have ever seen like the sine and then the cosine, sine and cosine, when you add them together and eliminate each other. That's kind of how we're doing it. So with frequencies that are, negative to the body, we want to eliminate those. And frequencies that are beneficial to the body, we want to bring those frequency levels up higher so they resonate at a higher point. So that's more or less how it works. You guys are going to have specific questions on this because this is a really tough subject to bring down and kind of figure out how to explain. But we've been getting questions about what muscle testing is, and I've been getting questions about grounding and stuff like that. And so I wanted to address them. The reason I haven't addressed them yet is because you can see how good of a job I did with it. But it's a real thing. It is beneficial. I would highly recommend that you guys go out and ground as much as you can. Go hug a tree. Literally, just wrap yourself around a tree. By making contact with that tree, you exchange frequency functions, kind of like magnet with like a magnet would. And so it's great. So if you guys have time, go out. One of the things I really love is go out in a wood or plastic chair, face east, socks off. You can have blankets on. You can have a lot of other stuff, and then sit bare feet on the dirt or on the grass and just watch the sun come up for 5 or 10 minutes and just relax and breathe. So you get early motoring photons in the eyes. You get a little bit of the sun gazing function, and you get that grounding ability. So that you're fantastic. You can lay like a cotton or flannel blanket, wool blanket on the ground and lay on that. That'll still work. But you need to have contact with the ground. I have a concrete deck on the ground. I can go stand on that. No, the rebar function that messes it up. Oftentimes the rubber in your shoes will insulate you from the ground as well. So try to go out, stand on the actual earth, and that'll help the most. So if you guys do have questions, I'm sure you do, because I think I did a terrible job explaining this. Hit us up, questions@chalmerswellness.com, and we'll get them knocked out. Talk to you guys later. Thanks for your time.